Hey guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Submission Radio. It's May 25th. I'm Dennis Gradov. I'm here with Kasper Ozalowski, and we have some exciting guests for you today.
We sure do, guys. On the eve of UFC 173, we have the one and only Hector Lombard. We have Benson Henderson, and we have the president of Bellator. We have Bjorn Rebney live on the show today.
That's right, guys. As always, interviews available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/submissionradioau. Check us out on Twitter. Give us a tweet. Let us know what you're thinking about the show. We love to interact with the Submission Radio fans. That's twitter.com/submissionaus.
That's the one. Check us out on Twitter, guys. And of course, Stitcher, iTunes, and TuneIn Radio is where you can find this if you don't have the time to watch it on YouTube. So do subscribe. We've got a lot of interviews coming up. We are bringing out a EA Sports UFC Q&A video. I think that is in the process of being put up now. So if you do want to find out some stuff on the game and you do want some fresh footage, including I think GSP versus Campman, Dodson versus Demetrius Johnson, and things like that, there will be fresh gameplay footage in the video as well. So do check that out, as well as the roster reveal, which is on our YouTube channel now.
That's right, guys. And don't forget the BlackBerry Market. It's available on there. That's the big one right there that we keep forgetting. And don't forget, all those MMA fans out there, there's going to be an exclusive in-depth interview with Mr. Don Fry. That's right, Don Fry will be on the show. We're going to have an exclusive up on the channel and a very good interview with Robert Whitaker. That one's going to be a video one, so you get to see our sexy faces one more time. And, you know, we speak about some interesting stuff with Robert, including a live Submission Radio Tapout round. So you know those things can get a bit messy quickly. So have a look at it live. Well, not live, but have a look at it on video and see how sexy we look when we do it.
Yeah, live and in the flesh. So they'll
makes it sound so creepy, but yeah, it's
good. So that's stuff to look out for, guys. It's going to be a very, very busy channel the next few weeks. And yeah, I can't wait to have Don Fry on the show. That's going to be absolutely sick.
That's right. And don't forget, now we've got Hector Lombard first, then we've got Benson Henderson, then you've got the UFC 173 breakdown. When me and Kasper break down the card, there's been obviously some huge upsets on that card. We'll be breaking it down, letting you know what we think, and then Bjorn Rebney. So if you don't have very much time, or you're not listening through Stitch, you're looking through YouTube, just look at the annotations or just skip forward to whichever part you want to listen to. But without further ado, we have our first guest, which will be on Submission Radio coming up right now.
Alright, guys, he's one of the elite UFC welterweights, and there's a very good chance he will be fighting for a title very soon. He's the former Bellator middleweight champion. He is Hector Lombard. Hector, welcome to Submission Radio. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. Great to be chatting to you. Now, Hector, the last time we saw you, you put a pretty good beating on Jake Shields. What have you been doing with yourself since then?
Well, I've been taking care of some personal stuff, and I got into a car accident. I got hit from behind, and been taking care of the medical issues and stuff. But overall, I'm all right. Thinking to start training next week, and looking forward to my next fight. It's gonna be in China. I wanna ask my Aussie fans to go over there to Macau and watch me fight live over there.
Yeah. We recently heard that you're going to be fighting Dong Hyun Kim, and it's going to be a great fight. Just before we talk about that fight on August 23rd, with this car crash, what exactly happened, and when did this happen? When did the car hit you?
Oh, it was the very same date that I was going to the UFC Orlando.
Wow, Hector. And did you receive any injury? You spoke about treating your injuries from that accident. What specific injuries did you get from that car accident?
My neck is sore, and my back, but most of my neck. But I mean, I think that I won't be any issue, and try to clear up that next week, and I'm back to the gym right away.
Okay,
I'll
great.
be back to the gym right away.
Well, it's good to hear that you're coming back. Now, let's talk about your fight on August 23rd in Macau, China. It's going to be against Dong Hyun Kim. What kind of problems, if any, does Kim present to you? And tell us about the challenge.
I think that one of the things that he got to maybe it would be difficult is he's a lot taller, but I think I'm used to fight tall guys all my life, taller than him. So I don't think that's gonna be any issue. But I think that that is gonna play on his favor.
Now, Hector, one of the stories coming out last week was your thoughts about Matt Brown's performance in his last fight. Are you disappointed that the UFC didn't put together a Matt Brown-Hector Lombard fight?
Most of it disappointed about how much hype Matt Brown has. Especially when, he's been fighting guys that he never fought a top 10 guy. That's one. And who is Eddie Silva? That's ridiculous. But I would love to fight this guy one day, and I'll prove a point. And I have no respect for him. I said today, I said tomorrow, I would say all the time. He has to go and fight a top 10 guy and go from there. Because when you fight a guy like Eddie Silva, anybody can look good. I'd beat Eddie Silva even better, even easier. And the way he did. But that's my opinion.
Now, Hector, obviously you've had some big wins over some really tough opponents. Does it kind of bother you that here you beat some huge opponents, but Matt Brown, like you said, may have versed some lesser opponents, but he's in the spotlight and everybody's talking about him possibly getting a title shot, while you've, for some reason, the UFC or other reasons, the hype of you having a title shot straight away just isn't there?
Well, it's something that I can't. That is out of my control. But once again, I believe that Matt Brown doesn't deserve none of that. I believe Matt Brown is just an average fighter, and even Kim, for example, Kim beat Matt Brown, and he's behind. Actually, Kim beat Matt Brown and Kim beat Eddie Silva. He knocked him out in Brazil, in his hometown. So, Kim is 4 times better than Matt Brown and 4 times better than Eddie Silva. And he is behind. He's behind on the table, like when you're on the ranks. He's behind Matt Brown when he beat Matt Brown. How this guy is supposed to feel, How I'm supposed to feel when I beat two former Strikeforce champions. It doesn't make sense. He never beat any former Strikeforce champion. He never beat any top 10 guy, and he has all the hype. That's very understandable. I don't understand that at all.
Those are all interesting points. I guess one of the things would be his long win streak, but it's true. The opponents are something else that maybe left to be desired.
If you fight all those fighters that he fought, I will have that record as well.
That's a very good point. I wanted to ask you also, one of your past opponents who you did beat, Alexander Schlemko, he recently had an interesting fight against a much larger Tito Ortiz. I was wondering if you did watch that fight, and what did you think of the bizarre matchup?
No, I didn't watch that fight, to be honest, but I'm not focusing now. I'm focusing in the UFC at the moment. I'm focusing that when I'm fighting. When I'm fighting at the moment, I'm focusing my league. I'm focusing in the UFC at the moment, and I can't say I can't make any comments about those fights because I didn't watch it.
Now, Hector, just speaking about the UFC and the welterweight division, I just want to get your thoughts on the division. Obviously, since GSP has left, the whole division's been shaken up, and you and along with your teammates Robbie and Tyron, you guys are in the top echelon of the division. So, can you tell us a little bit about what it's like training, with the best of the best in the division? And do you reckon there'll be any problems in the future because you guys are looking at title shots or being champions very soon, fighting each other in the future? Is that something you guys have spoken about?
To be honest, that hasn't crossed my mind. And we train at the same camp, but we don't train together. And that hasn't crossed my mind yet. I mean, I like both of those guys. I mean, like, I'm cool with Robbie, and I'm okay with Tyrone. So, there's sort of things that you would say to yourself, like, when that come across, or when that happened, it's happened. But at the moment, it hasn't happened. So, kind of like I don't want to even think about it.
That's a good point. In terms of your upcoming fight with Dong Hyun Kim, in terms of your style, you have amazing judo, but you do prefer to strike and you do prefer to, knock people out and really put a statement on. Dong Hyun Kim is another guy who is a grappler but likes to strike now. How do you see the fight going? What will be the game plan for the upcoming fight?
I see the fight going by KO, and I can't describe how the KO is going to be. First of all, I'm a little more experienced fighter than him. A lot more explosive and a lot stronger and faster. So I don't think he's going to create any problems. As long as I go over there with my mind right and I made my weight on point, I don't think he's going to bring any issues. But, I mean, I can't say anymore, to be honest. I don't think it's gonna be an issue to me. Obviously it's gonna be thinking the same way, but that's why we have to prove it. We have to prove it over there.
And I wanted to ask you, in terms of your judo, obviously, you are a very good judo player, but you do prefer to knock people out. That's how most of your fights go. Can you tell us a little bit about why you decided to use more, your striking as opposed to your judo?
Yeah, I always want to be remarkable, and that's one of the things that make me who I am today. Kind of like a side of fighter, people want to watch me fight. It's different than when you get a guy like Jake Chills. He's extremely good fighter. Everyone knows in the MMA game that Jake Chills is he who is who. But that you want to watch him fight? No, that because it's horrible to watch. He's boring. I didn't, and he also made look everyone he fights horrible. Everybody that he fought, he made the guys look horrible. So, I never wanted to be like, a Jake Chi guy. I want to be like, a side fighter where you kind of like, you pleased to see me fight. You know what I mean?
I completely understand. Now, something I wanted to ask you personally, I remember being in Australia, it was, I believe, Queensland, and you knocked out Husma Palhares. It was a quick TKO. You went to celebrate. It was obviously great, you being in Australia with all your Aussie fans, something very close to your heart. One thing I remember is you were trying to get the Australian flag into the octagon, and the security were trying to stop that. Eventually, somebody threw the flag over, and you got to celebrate. Can you tell us a little bit what happened there, why the security didn't want the flag in there?
I mean, that's a really good question to us, and I asked that myself later on, and I asked that security guy why he didn't want to give me the flag, and he just said that he thought I was going to do something with it. I'm like, well, what was I supposed to do? I was just kind of raise it up and be proud of it. But yeah, I think that was the excuse that he just he had certain excuses, but it was a bit silly. You should let me celebrate, and I mean, the house was packed, and everyone wanted, celebrate with me the victory and stuff like that. And obviously, I wanted to show, the gratitude of what Australia have done with me, and it was pretty hard to put my point across, But at the end of the day, I did it, and that's what matters.
That's right, Hector. And, over in China, if you do win, hopefully there won't be any more issues getting that flag in there, because we love to see you in there with the flag. Now, we've got a couple of quick fan questions for you. So I'll just kick it off. Joey Jojo asks, on a scale of 1 to epic, how tough is your weight cut? And what's your weight usually on fight night when you step into the cage?
I would be like my last fight. I was walking around 195, 198, between around that, 198, 195. You know what? If I want to be heavier, I can, but I don't want to. I want to be, kind of like 15 pounds, 16, something like that, around that area. No more than that.
Okay.
And yeah. So that way I can stay fast and not heavy.
And sorry to cast him, and how difficult is the weight cut for you, Hector?
It is difficult, but it's one of the things that you have to get it. You have to dress the situation on time, because if you don't dress the situation, and you leave everything for to the end, it's gonna be a nightmare. So I'm trying to cut the weight like a month and a half before, and then like try to go with it almost really close to weight. That way it doesn't become a bigger issue. But it's always hard. It's always hard to cut the weight. You understand?
And another fan question, Rory McDonald, not the actual fighter, just the fan. He wants to know: do you still train judo on a regular basis, or do you mostly rely on your previous skills that you learned in the past?
I love judo for a long time, and I'm kind of like regret it. So since my fight against Nate McQuad, start doing judo a lot more. Once because I cut a lot of weight with it. The gear, the sweating, the techniques and all that. So it's a lot easier for me to cut weight when I'm doing judo. And that's part of me. I mean, like I was a bit ignorant before, because I don't like to do judo anymore. I just want to be a striker. I want to focus in MMA, but something that's part of you. Never forget where you come from. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, Hector. Now we're going to do a quick thing. It's called the Submission Radio Tap Out Round, and it's like a word association. Just say the first thing that pops into your head when we ask you the question. So, are you ready?
I didn't got it. I didn't got a thing. Say it again.
Okay, so we're about to do the Submission Radio Tap Out Round. So what this is it's like a word association. We ask you a quick series of questions, and you tell us the first thing that pops into your head. Are you ready?
Yeah.
It's a bit of fun questions. You should enjoy this one.
Okay, here we go. When Hector Lombard goes to karaoke, what song does he choose to sing?
It's true.
Okay, what's the best advice you've ever gotten about being a fighter?
Never let anyone to punch you.
If you weren't a fighter, what kind of weight do you think you'd be walking around at?
About 300 pounds.
What does Hector Lombard's hobbies include apart from kicking ass?
Chilling, relaxing. I miss the barbecue, honestly. A barbecue with some beers.
Yeah, I think everybody loves barbecue and beers, especially in Australia.
Yeah, that's the Aussie in you coming out, Hector. Now, if you could be a character in any movie, what movie would you be in, and which character would you be?
James Bond.
Yeah, my childhood idol. What's your pre-fight?
Yeah.
What's your pre-fight ritual?
Sleep.
What's the best music concert? Oh, sorry there, Hector. What's the best music concert you've ever been to?
Shakira.
Shakira. We hear her hips don't lie, so that makes sense. And finally, when is Hector Lombard coming back to Australia to kick some ass?
After my next fight, I'm coming over.
All right, awesome. We look forward to having you. Hector, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. Guys, you can catch Hector Lombard on Twitter at Hector Lombard. And of course, he will be versing Dong Hyun Kim on August the 23rd in Macau, China. So definitely going to be a fun fight. Hector, again, thank you so much for being on Submission Radio, and we look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thank you. Have a good night, brother.
So there we go. We've got some time with Hector Lombard, obviously a very busy guy. Didn't realize that he had that car accident. Some news coming out there, and excited for his big fight in UFC China. But you know something, guys? Our next guest, we don't have very much time with him either. You know, he's getting ready for his big fight. His name is Benson Henderson, and I'm excited to have a chat to him, Cass.
Yeah, it's obviously going to be fighting Rustam Khabilov in his home turf. Not Benson's, Khabilov's home turf of Albuquerque. So definitely want to hear what he has to say about that. And obviously a few questions about, that fight against Anthony Pettis. And yeah, just going back to Hector Lombard, I can't wait to see him fight Dong Hyun Kim, and I can't wait to see if him and Matt Brown do end up putting on a performance.
That's right. Obviously, the welterweight division, hot like a pancake on a Saturday morning. A lot of great fighters there. So very exciting to see what happens with that. And but without further ado, it's time to get into the UFC lightweight division with our next guest.
Alright guys, our next guest is a former WEC lightweight champion, a former UFC lightweight champion. He's one of the best lightweights in the world, and he's the toothpick master. He is Benson Henderson. Benson, welcome to the Submission Radio.
Oh, thanks, Catherine. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. One of the first things, now you've got a big fight coming up on June 7th. You're headlining Fight Night 42 against Rustam Khabilov. How's training going so far?
Training's really good. I'm here in Flagstaff, Arizona, doing some high elevation training. A lot of people don't realize Albuquerque is higher up actually than Denver, so it's a mile up in elevation. So we like to make sure that I'm as well prepared as we possibly can be for my fights. I have four other teammates fighting on the card also as well. So we're all over here making sure we're prepared for June 7th.
Now, Benson, not a lot of people know what it's like to be a part of a team and getting ready for a fight all together. It must be a surreal feeling. Can you tell us a little bit what it's like, the vibe with, everybody getting ready for a fight together? It must be a pretty crazy vibe going at the moment.
Well, not really too crazy, I guess. Not. I wouldn't say that, but guys are a little more intense, getting ready for the fights. A little more focus-driven when you're in the gym. You should be in the gym in between the fights. When you're in the gym, like all my teammates are, like I am, in between fights, you're still in the gym, 3 times a day, still training hard. But there's not like a pointed edge to it, You're just trying to get better, trying to improve this, improve that, make your holes in your game smaller and smaller. When it comes to training camp, you're just a little bit more focused, a little bit more fine-tuned to doing what you need to do, make sure you're ready, make sure you're getting your work in, to be ready for the fight.
Now, in terms of Rustam, he's obviously known for being Russian, being tough, being Russian, and suplexes. So are you doing anything different to avoid those suplexes or his style in general? Are you bringing any Sambo guys in or anything like that?
No, not really. We have a bunch of good wrestlers. Well, we have a lot of tough wrestlers at my gym. So we've been going more with them. I wrestle every day. But as far as sparring them, making sure I get that good look while we go live, I do that a lot more for sure. I'm trying to get guys who can match up to your opponent. If he's 6'1", make sure your training partner is when he's sparring or 6'1". If he has a really good switch kick, make sure your training partner know to throw that switch kick a lot to try and be as good as possible to move to your opponent. So we're
a pretty decent job of making sure we see a similar type of look all throughout training camp.
Now, Benson, it was revealed in an earlier interview that you initially thought you were fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov. I should be able to pronounce that since I'm from Russia myself. Is that true? Did you think you were fighting Khabib originally?
No, I didn't think I was fighting him. There was a guy on Twitter who said he wanted to fight me. I wasn't really paying that close attention.
Yeah.
But my reply, of course, to everybody is, yeah, sure. Fight, let's do it. Not many guys want to fight me. I'm not the most easiest of fights. I haven't had a guy want to fight me, except for having the belt for a long, long time. So when they said, "Oh yeah, I want to fight somebody," I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, let's do it." I did think it was Khabib. I didn't know it was. I thought like a Russian name. Wasn't paying that close attention. But then I found out it was not Khabib. It was it was not Khabib. It was Rustam. And then the talks got more serious about when and where, all that stuff. But at that point, I knew it was Rustam. But initially, the first like 5 minutes, I thought the tweet that was sent over was from Khabib, but not from Rustam.
Now, obviously, you're ranked a lot higher than Rustam, and you face the elite in the lightweight division. How do you see the fight going, and how tough of a challenge do you think Rustam is?
Rustam's very tough, man. We all know those Russians. They're pretty tough. They're known as a people as being tough. The stereotype, so to speak. But he's proved it inside the octagon as well. It's not just a stereotype for him, but it's fact. He's a tough kid. Working on his wrestling, his sambo, his background. He's really good at it. So he's been at Jackson now for a while. He's working on improving his overall game, of course. His boxing, his kickboxing, his overall game, work on everything. And he's getting better. He's showing improvement in every fight. So me knowing the Jackson camp, Greg Jackson, how good that camp is, how good all those fighters are, I know he'll be a better fighter. This will be the best Rustam Khabilov that the UFC's ever seen. So I'm preparing for my best, have my best performance to make sure I can go 5 rounds hard and go out there and just show up and show out.
And, just on that, being as I'm Russian and Ukrainian, don't worry, we're not as tough as we look. And, if you need a Ukrainian Russian, if you need a Ukrainian Russian whisperer or advisor, you can always give me a call and I'll do my best. I know them all pretty well.
I'll hold you to that.
But I was going to say, one of the debates happening right now over here in Australia, at least, is Sambo versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus wrestling. Now, Sambo is obviously a mixture of a few, but lately, a lot of these Russian fighters have been coming out and really supporting Sambo. What is your thought on the debate on the Sambo versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling? Do you think there's a dominant form, or do you have a thought on this?
For me, the whole Sambo versus wrestling versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus Judo versus Taekwondo versus Kung Fu versus anything, any traditional form of martial arts. Normally, the better form is the individual who's better at it. It doesn't matter. You can be, a white belt beginner Sambo guy, and you go against a black belt Jiu-Jitsu guy. Probably the Sambo guy's gonna lose. If you reverse it, have a beginner white belt, blue belt Jiu-Jitsu guy going against a Sambo world champion, probably the Sambo guy's gonna win. The same thing for Kung Fu and Muay Thai or American style, Western style boxing. It just depends on. So many people try to overgeneralize. Oh, Kung Fu is better. Oh, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is better. Oh, American wrestling is the best. There is no best. It's the individual. Because we overgeneralize, we lose sight of the individual. It's the individual who makes what he does so good, and then you have guys who are trying to mix it all up and do, wrestling and Sambo and Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai and Kung Fu and Karate and Tai Chi, My opinion, those guys are the best. You are the best if you are the smartest at mixing it all up.
I could just imagine a guy coming into the ring, with in the UFC, and it says black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and an experienced Tai Chi master before he steps into the octagon.
Yeah. It'll happen one of these days. Watch.
Now, I want to talk about your last fight. It didn't exactly go your way. I'm assuming it would have been very devastating. How tough was that loss, and what did it do to you mentally?
Oh, the last fight was Josh Thompson. I got my hand raised. That one was a good fight. Yeah, no worries. That fight was a good fight. I went out there, had to do what I had to do. Close fight. A lot of people are underestimating Josh Thompson. He's been in the top 5, pound rankings or 155 pound rankings in the lightweight division for a long, long time. I knew how tough he was. I know how, balanced he is, how a true veteran of the game Josh Thompson was. So I knew it was going to be a tough fight. He had those wars, absolute wars with Melendez. He had 3 fights. A lot of people say he even won the last fight that, Gilbert won by split decision. People had Josh winning it. But just, he's a tough fighter. I knew how tough he was. The fight before then was the Pettis fight. I lost my UFC championship belt. That made me sad, of course, especially losing by an arm lock. I was like, oh, really? An arm lock? Of all things, an arm lock. Huh. Interesting. But, it makes me want to go out there and get better like I always do. I have to go out there and get better, improve, work my game, know that, even if I don't think I have a hole in my game like jiu-jitsu, it's not a hole in my game, it's a strength. But that's where I got caught. So obviously, it is a hole. I went back and take a good look at myself and see where I need to improve and see how I need to get better. And so even if you think it's your strength, then guess what? It can be the place where you lose it all. So that's what the Pettis fight did for me a lot.
And I think it was pretty crazy because, yeah, you're right. Jiu-jitsu has never been your weak point. A lot of people have always seen you as, unsubmittable. It is one of those things that just happen. Yeah, for some reason I completely forgot about the Thompson fight. My apologies. But on your last few fights, on your last few fights, you've had some close decisions. You have been victorious. Do you feel like in order to get that title shot, you need to make a statement in this fight?
No. I mean, for me to title, I have to keep on winning, period. It doesn't matter. You need to win. People get too caught up in, oh, you got to do this, oh, you got to do that, oh, you got to do that. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. You got to go out there and win. First things first. You got to go out there and get your hand raised. Does it help a little bit, so to speak? Finishing fights, of course. Yeah, obviously it helps finish fights and make a statement and yada, 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 that sort of stuff. But ultimately it comes down to winning. That's it.
And you know what, Benson, you have a great state of mind, and I think that's really important in a fighter and a former champion and a future champion in yourself. With that Pettis fight, obviously everybody always spoke about it. It was the fight that everybody was expecting to happen. Was that a little bit of a drain for you? Always people asking you about it, knowing that it's going to happen. Was there a bit of pressure on you in that fight, which maybe may have let you make a mistake? Because it was probably one of the highest profile fights you've had in the UFC.
No, I don't make excuses. There's no additional pressure. There's always additional this, first time that, first time this, additional this. There's always extra additional pressures of this and that and yada yada. First time this, pay-per-view, not pay-per-view, main event, not main event. There's always extra stuff. I don't care about any of it. It really, to be honest, it doesn't matter to me. Whether we're fighting in the back of a 7-Eleven, whether it's your first fight under the Zuffa card, first fight in the UFC, first time meeting main event, it doesn't matter. All that matters is getting your hand raised, having a good performance and getting your hand raised. So the extra pressure. First of all, too, also, there's no source of pressure that will come anywhere close to the pressure I put on myself. I expect myself to win. I expect myself to perform well. I expect myself to get my hand raised and to dominate people. Anybody else saying, any other pressure, yada, 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 it pales in comparison. The pressure I place on myself to succeed, to do well, is more than anything comes close to. So, no, I don't make excuses for making a mistake or having lost doing that. I make no excuses. Pettis won that night. He did a good job. Hats off to him. He has the belt around his waist right now. No excuses.
And now, Benson, I remember not too long ago you were talking about, wanting to be the greatest of all time and breaking, Anderson Silva's records. Obviously, he set so many, and John Jones is setting so many. Is that still your goal?
Say again?
I was just saying, not too long ago, I remember hearing you say in an interview that your goal was to be the greatest of all time and break all of Anderson Silva's records. Is that still your goal?
You gotta have goals in life. You gotta have long-term goals, short-term goals. Well, that's how I feel anyways. I feel it's important. Goals, ever since I was goals. In my high school, I want to be the best wrestler in the city. I want to be the best wrestler in the state. From there, I want to be the best, wrestler in college, the best wrestler in Nebraska, the best wrestler in the tri-state. So, it's good to have goals. You want to have goals in life. My goal for me to be the best fighter on the planet, absolutely. Why else would I be doing this if not to be the best fighter on the planet, So, yeah, my goal is to be the best fighter, and if that means winning a certain number of fights, absolutely. If it means, doing this, then absolutely it means doing that, and then, whatever. I just want to be the best fighter on the planet, period. Pound for pound, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
As far as the fan questions go, MMA 2003 wanted to ask, do you speak Korean and do you eat kimchi?
I love kimchi. Absolutely love it. I am not fluent in Korean, but I do speak it. I was in Korea a couple of times, 3-4 times. I was able to speak, get along, order food, and, sightsee just fine. I'm not fluent, but, if I got lost, dropped off in North Korea, I'd be just fine.
Okay, now it's time for the tap-out round. Benson, this is a quick word association. Just say the first thing comes to your head, and it's just a little bit of fun. Are you ready?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, so you've won a UFC title, proposed to your girlfriend in the octagon. So the marketing team at Submission Radio come up with 3 things you could do to top these things in the octagon. So here are the top 3 things that you have to choose from. Whistle after your post-fight interview, which causes a herd of buffaloes to run to the octagon, and you and your corner would then jump on the buffaloes and ride them out of the arena. Vanilla Ice does Ice Ice Baby after your post-fight speech, providing an appropriate soundtrack for victory. Or a Sweet Eagle flies into the octagon and gives you a box, which you then do to redo your nuptials live in the ring with Joe Rogan being the master of ceremonies. Which one would you prefer?
The second one sounds kind of cool. I'll go with that.
Okay. Now, do you use Head and Shoulders on those lustrous locks? And if you do, then why does Lyoto Machida have the sponsorship and not yourself?
I use whichever company wants to pay me money. I use that brand.
Now, when EA UFC does finally come out, who do you play as and who do you beat up in the game?
I play like once my entire life. I don't really play it too much.
Okay, now you are a very large 155 pounder. How much weight do you cut, and would you ever consider going to 170?
Oh, on my team, the MMA lab here in Glendale, Arizona, I'm the smaller side of our 55 pounders. We have like 4, 5, 6 55 pounders. They're all quite a bit bigger than I am.
Everyone knows that Russians love to wrestle bears in preparation for fights. How many bears have you wrestled in preparation for this fight? Was it A3, B6, or C12?
7.
Any truth to the fact that Steven Seagal taught you how to hold the toothpick in your mouth during fights?
True. That is a true statement.
And finally, out of your entire career, what has been your favorite moment so far, apart from the amazing moment where you proposed, of course, to your wife in the octagon?
Favorite moment in my career. Probably being able to take care of my family, financially and stuff. The career that I have, being able to take care of my family, my wife's family. Fighting fun, fighting cool, but it's just a job, dude. There's a lot more important stuff, a lot better stuff I love in life, a lot more than fighting. It's cool and all. I love, definitely, my senior year in college, university. My team won the team national title. That means way more to me than anything that I won myself individually in my UFC career.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean. We won the E2 basketball championship with our university, and I still wear the medal to this day. Guys, we appreciate the time, guys. Benson Henderson will be in Australia for Legend Seminar from June 20th to July 25th. We will keep you informed on the exact dates and information closer to the big event, and we can't wait for Benson to come down and teach us some of the stuff. I mean, he knows so much. It's going to be very exciting. You can follow him on Twitter at Benson Henderson or go to smoothben.com. And, of course, UFC Fight Night, Benson versus Khabilov, June 7th. Benson, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate that. I appreciate it, you guys.
So there you have it, guys. Benson Smooth Henderson. He's a really busy guy, so unfortunately we didn't have him for quite as long as we wanted to. But we're still really appreciative of him coming on the show. You know, great guy, interesting guy, and I can't wait to see him fight against Rustam Khabilov.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Benson has a tough fight ahead of him. Obviously, he wants another title shot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in his career in the future. And it's always a pleasure having him on. And hopefully we have him on again in the future to talk about what's going to be happening after that fight. So great stuff, Benson.
Yeah, absolutely. But moving on, guys, we've got a really massive show. We're going to be speaking to Bjorn Rebney in not too long at all. But before we do that, it's time to break down the UFC 173 card. Pretty exciting card, I would say. Let's kick it off. We don't have a lot of time, so let's kick it off with the first main fight on the main card, and that will be James Krause versus Jamie Varner. Dennis, what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, you know, I think a lot of people thought that Jamie Varner hurt his ankle with Krause's kick, but what I believe it was is when he tried to step down after that kick, he did roll that ankle, possibly broke something tall, some tendons. You know, Jamie Varner's just one hell of a beast. Very impressed that he was able to keep the fight going, considering, you know, he was so injured. And I don't know what I think about this win for James Krause. Obviously, it's one of those Tyron Woodley type victories, except I believe Tyron looked a lot better than James did. So I don't know how much it does for Krause in terms of wow excitement, but I think it's still a big win for him. What do you reckon, Cass?
Well, I think the only reason why it wouldn't do much for Krause is because Jamie Varner, he's quite the fan favorite. But as James said, James Krause said after the fight, it was something that he was training for, not necessarily for Jamie Varner to really injure his ankle, but those kicks, the low ones at the calf, it was something he was training for. So I think with Tyron Woodley, he shot him for a takedown, the ACL pop. I think that was just a freak thing. With James Krause, I think, he sort of, I think he was very much a factor in how he got injured. And you're right, it is when he put his foot down. And Jamie Varner, that's the thing, a lot of respect to that guy because he has a lot of knockout power and he can knock anyone out. So for him to keep swinging, I think he was always in that fight. And, just personally, I don't love seeing fights like that where a guy's ankle is barely hanging on and he's hobbling around. It is tough to watch. I think it's up there with the Anderson Silva injury, even though it's not as gruesome. And I kind of did want that fight stopped, so I'm glad his corner waved it off. It's a responsible thing to do by the corner, but I think as long as that fight continued, Jamie Varner I think did still have a chance. So we'll see where he goes from here. 3 losses in a row. I think given the valiant performance that he put on, the fact that he continued, I don't think he'll be getting cut from the UFC.
Well, yeah, he's had some bad luck. He's had some terrible luck, actually. I think people love him. He's a fan favorite. I see him around for one more fight. And, it'll just be interesting to see. And just on that point in itself, I guess people love it when a fighter trains a technique that's effective. But then when something like this happens, a lot of fans aren't that happy about it. I suppose people like seeing people get knocked out or submitted. But when a fight finishes because of an injury, I don't think anybody likes that. So I think we're learning something new about MMA fans here. I mean, it's happened quite a bit recently, and I don't think people kind of get that ending that they hope for in a fight.
Even that guy the other day who tapped out after dominating his opponent, even though they were amateurs, and his reason was that they're not getting paid, so there's no need for that kind of brutality. So, and I think that's what separates MMA as a sport. There's a lot of gentlemen in this sport. But moving on to the next fight, obviously in the bantamweight division, we had Takeya Mizugaki and Francisco Rivera. That was a fun fight, Dennis. What did you think of that one?
Well, breaking down Rivera's shorts, I didn't believe that the sponsorship logos on there held on very well. I'd choose a different fabric. I believe that he could get something much better out of a different fabric, and that's all I noticed about the fight. Now, look, the fight was really, it was back and forth. Mizugaki really brought it. I thought Rivera did a good job, but Mizugaki just notched him out in a lot of areas, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with him in the future.
Yeah, and Rivera's a tough opponent. I mean, Mizugaki's putting together a really solid win streak now in the bantamweight division, and I don't think he's that far away from a title shot. He needs that signature win. He hasn't versed anyone, I don't think, in the top 10. But, he's beaten, Jeff Hoagland, Brian Caraway, Eric Perez, Nam Fan, and now Francisco. So, I'm really happy for Mizugaki. Everybody loves him. And, he had that crazy fight against Nam Fan. And, this one didn't disappoint either. He really likes to get in there. I think if he's going to continue winning and climbing that ladder in the bantamweight division. He might need to refine his technique. A lot of his fights are wars. I think once you get up to that top 10, top 5, you really need to either be destroying guys or, you know, putting on extremely dominant performances. The thing is with Mizugaki, his performance has been very close. So either way, happy to see him win, and I look forward to seeing him in the future.
Yeah, and I agree with you. There's a lot of holes there, and before he does get to the top, he has to fix them up. And being in wars is great for fight fans, but if you want a career where you become a champion, you really have to seal some of those holes up. So we'll see what happens with Mizugaki in the future.
Yeah, unless your name's Forrest Griffin or Robbie Lawler, there's not too many champions that win those belts, coming off wars. But speaking of Robbie Lawler, he was up next in the welterweight division. Robbie Lawler defeated Jake Ellenberger, and my God, what a dominant performance. I actually didn't realize Robbie Lawler was the favorite coming to that fight. I actually thought people would pick Jake Ellenberger a bit more. And I did have Robbie Lawler winning that fight. Dennis, what did you think?
Well, Jake was on the show. You guys should check out our interview with him in the channel, youtube.com/submission radio AU. I actually had Ellenberger winning this fight. You and me spoke before the card. You had Robbie, I had Jake. But when Jake came out, the game plan was all wrong. You could be a talented fighter, but if you have the wrong game plan, if you haven't trained right, I don't think, you can do much in a fight like that. Now, Robbie's strength is his boxing, his ability to throw out those quick jabs, his amazing combinations. And I feel like Jake Ellenberger abandoned what he's really great at, which was wrestling, and decided to stand in there and throw with him. And he just doesn't have enough weapons in his toolbox for something like that. If Jake came out there, got Robbie down, and really threatened a takedown, Robbie wouldn't have been stepping forward so much, wouldn't have been closing the distance and throwing whatever he wanted to. He would have thought about it a bit more. And near the end, Jake did attempt some wrestling, but it was just too little too late. Robbie's so impressive, but he's got to be careful as well. He lets opponents get close and throw shots. He'll take a shot to throw a shot. He's got to be careful with that sometimes.
Yeah, I think with Jake Ellenberger, he's got all the athleticism in the world. He's got knockout power. He is fast. But I don't even think it's really a case of technique. I think it's just more, incorrect game plan, like you said, Dennis. And I think with Jake Ellenberger, after that last fight against Rory McDonald, obviously he was extremely unhappy with that, and he said he was working a lot on his boxing, and I think he wanted to test it out against Robbie Lawler. But as we saw in the Hendricks fight, Robbie Lawler, he's got some very good striking. Saw him even mix it up, threw in a few kicks as well. And he's a brawler. He can really suck guys into that Robbie Lawler brawling style, and that's exactly what he did to Jake Ellenberger. And you're right, I think Jake Ellenberger should have mixed it up a lot more, should have used his wrestling. But at the same time, Robbie Lawler, he can really stuff takedowns. I'm pretty sure even Josh Koscheck could only take him down once, and Robbie Lawler popped up. We saw Johnny Hendricks' wrestling, which is fantastic wrestling, really get nullified. I don't think he took him down once until the final round. So, having said that, I think it was a pretty tough fight for Jake Ellenberger. The only thing I think Jake had going for him was that he was very hungry, and I think he had better speed than Robbie Lawler. But, in the end, it didn't work out for him. And that crisp knee that Robbie threw, Jesus, that was
like
right
a Pringle.
Like a Pringle, exactly like a Pringle.
Pringle kick.
It was right on target.
Yeah, and something, Jake had Robbie's back at one point. Robbie had a bit of a laugh, got out of there, went into side control, and got right back up. I would have liked to see Jake hold his positions a little bit better, and I know he could. I mean, he's a very good wrestler, but, it just comes down to a few things. I don't know what was going through his head. We'll have to get him on the show and have a good chat about it. We're Jake Ellenberger fans. I'm sure he'll be able to bounce back. But I think Robbie just, showed how much of a great fighter he really is. And what about that post-fight speech trying to cut a little bit of a promo? He wants that title. He wants that title shot.
And it's crazy. I was going to say, just on Jake, he has all the talent in the world. And I do like him, a few fights away, maybe a year or so ago, people talking about how he's the next big thing and he could potentially be that guy to beat GSP. Him along with, Johnny Hendricks and, Rory McDonald, all the new generation of welterweights. I just think, maybe he needs a bit of a game plan changer. But yeah, what about Robbie Lawler? Talk about a Cinderella man story. Loses to Johnny Hendricks barely. I mean, he clearly lost, but it was very close. And it looks like he could be fighting either Johnny Hendricks or be getting another title shot sooner than later. I mean, it's one of those fights where he was winning, he was having a dominant performance, and he went for the finish, and he put a stamp on it. And, the UFC and Dana White, they absolutely love stuff like that, and that's what helps you get those title shots.
Yeah, agreed. Welterweight division booming at the moment. you know, a lot of great fighters. We've had Hector Lombard at the start of the show. You know, he's been looking great. He'll have a big fight coming up. A lot of big names in the division. I'll be very interested to see what happens to Robbie next. He's not the type of guy that goes out there and really calls fighters out. His fighting does the talking for him. And that post-fight speech, you could kind of see that, you know, what he was thinking really didn't come out of his mouth. I mean, he did ask for Johnny, but I think he was looking for a Ric Flair type promo, a Chael Sonnen type promo. It didn't quite happen there. But I think everybody got the point. Either way, everybody got the point. He is one bad man, and he wants that title. And I think Johnny Hendricks would be watching that fight thinking, all right, I'm ready for you, Robbie. And come and get it. And
you know, as far as pay-per-views go, you know, some pay-per-views are more lackluster than others. Some of them, they don't have that, you know, money pay-per-view feel. I don't think anyone would have a problem with seeing Robbie Lawler, Johnny Hendricks too. It was a very close fight. It was a very action-filled fight, and I think everybody would like to see the rematch. And the UFC and Dana White, they love guys like Robbie Lawler. Doesn't talk a lot of shit. If anything, he could promote his fights a little bit more. I'd say that's the only negative, and that's not really much of a negative because he gets in there, he has fights, he has scraps, he knocks people out, he has finishes, and he's a pretty easy sell. You put on a Robbie Lawler highlight, and who wouldn't get excited?
That's right. You know, when we spoke to Hector earlier on in the show, he said, look, all of us train together. I mean, we all train at the same place, but we don't really train together. What was he trying to say to us, Cass? I don't know, but you know, he comes off a very dominant performance. You never know what's going to happen with Tyron Woodley. There's a big fight coming up. I see some of these guys matching up before a title fight.
I think sooner or later we will see these guys. I know with Tyron, when we had him on the show a couple of months ago, he talked about how he was a lot more closer with Robbie than he was with Hector, and I think that is the general consensus. You know, Hector's a guy who sort of keeps his head down, trains really hard. I don't think he's the type of guy that, you know, goes out and has lattes with Robbie Lawler and, you know, Tyron Woodley. Obviously they're not enemies, but I don't think they're best buds. You know, you're not going to see them on Xbox Live playing together and stuff like that. So I think Hector will fight anyone really. And yeah, no, I definitely see fireworks against any of these guys matched up. So.
And that's one of the questions that we never asked Hector, you know, does he drink lattes? Because I don't know if he would drink a latte, but if he does, then I'd be impressed. I mean, we can always ask him next time when he comes on the show.
Maybe he'd be a short macchiato kind of guy. You know?
I think he might.
Bit of froth, bit of nice little shot, something to wake you up. Or maybe he likes hazelnut cappuccinos. I don't know. I feel like a failed journalist now that we didn't ask this.
I know, and it's like, does he like a picture of a flower in his coffee, or I don't know. What does he want?
Next time.
What does he look for? These are the cutting edge questions that guys aren't asking that we should be asking. Damn it.
Yeah. Up next in the light heavyweight division, you had Daniel Cormier against Dan Henderson. Now, Jesus, talk about a dominant performance by Daniel Cormier. Absolutely. And we're going to be the millionth person to say this because Mike Goldberg and Joe Rogan used up all the, you know, availabilities to use the word ragdoll. But he really did ragdoll Dan Henderson. And, yes, it was crazy. The crazy thing is these are two fantastic wrestlers. And, you know, Dan Henderson, obviously Olympian, Daniel Cormier, Olympian. And you just saw the power advantage, the technique advantage. You know, it's like two champions fighting, and one of them just absolutely annihilates the other.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I just want to say it might have been the light heavyweight division, but to me it more looked like a heavyweight versus a middleweight. I mean, it was a huge different size. When he was ragdolling Dan Henderson, it looked like we were at a training center with two different weight classes training together. And, you know, it was expected. It was expected. You know, Dan Henderson noted in interviews, you know, he can't do those kinds of takedowns like he used to. Not to mention, you know, he's a Greco-Roman, I believe, Olympian, and they're better in the clinch.
Yeah.
Daniel Cormier, you know, strength advantage. You know, he's fresh. He hasn't had this many injuries. You know, you and me were watching Dan Henderson warm up from behind a curtain through a camera situated in somebody's walking stick, and no, we're watching on TV, and you know, Dan Henderson, he didn't look that great in the warm up, you know, and you mentioned to me, you said, oh, he looks a bit sickly. Well, he did. He looked sickly. He came in at 199. We don't want to speculate that it's because he went off TRT or anything like that, but it's a big change for the body. Recently, he had a huge war with Shogun Rua, you know, where Shogun really landed a lot of punches on Hendo, coupled with all of his injuries. You know, I don't know. Was it too quick for Hendo to come back?
Yeah, it was a quick turnaround. And yeah, I remember saying that he did look really sick. If anyone's ever had the flu, and I think who hasn't, your body's aching, you walk around, it's hard to walk around, you're short on breath, and that's exactly what Dan Henderson looked like. It wouldn't surprise me for it to come out afterwards that Hendo was in fact sick. Whether that's to do with TRT or not, who knows? Anyone can catch something or cold or whatever the case is. But coming in at 199, Jesus Christ, he hasn't come in that light for quite a while. And as far as the fight goes, Henderson really only had that one tool, and that was the H-bomb. If he wasn't going to land that, I didn't see him having much of a chance against Cormier. Had he beaten him, I think he would have definitely, been up there and, deserved possibly a title shot. Because at the end of the day, if you beat the guy, you deserve a shot, and as simple as that. But yeah, I don't think he had much for him. And those slams by Cormier were just insane. We saw him do it to Josh Barnett, and the way he did it to Dan Henderson. I mean, Dan Henderson absolutely flew.
Yeah, that's right. We do have a little thing with Javier Mendez talking about a potential John Jones, Daniel Cormier matchup. It's on our channel. Check it out. He talks about what he thinks would happen if they match up. But, one of the things coming out of this is a lot of people are talking about how impressed they are with Cormier. I'm not that impressed, to be honest with you. Cormier did what I thought he'd do. He went in there and dominated him with the wrestling, used his weight to tire Dan Henderson out, kept his dominant positions. But it didn't blow me out the water. We still haven't seen Daniel's, striking capability against some of the top guys in the world. He hasn't blown me away in the light heavyweight division or in the UFC, as a matter of fact. And I'm not sure what would happen in that John Jones fight.
Agreed. I think Daniel Cormier really is fantastic. He's obviously got amazing wrestling, and he can take, I'd say, almost anyone down. I'm still not 100% sure if he can take John Jones down, but pretty much anyone else he can take down. He's got very decent striking. But in this fight, I really noticed watching him here. If you put Cain Velasquez in the same matchup, I think Cain would have absolutely destroyed Hendo, and a lot quicker too. So I think there is that gap between DC and Cain Velasquez. So, and the other thing, Daniel Cormier is he's a much younger guy. Shogun's much older, and that fight against Shogun, that was March 23rd. That was 2 days over 2 months ago. 2 months ago, to be taking crazy punches like that. I know that usually if you get knocked out, I think you have to take at least 60 days. You get at least a 60-day suspension, or not a suspension, but you're on the shelf. You can't even train or anything. And Hendo came very close. So for him to go right back into a training camp, go right back in there against a guy like Daniel Cormier, I don't think it was ever gonna, work out very well for him. But you're right, as far as Daniel Cormier goes, there have been some fights where he looked a little bit lackluster. I don't think he was all that dominant against Frank Mir. I remember Frank Mir was landing those, huge body kicks towards the end of the fight. Also, Daniel Cormier's cardio, I'm not 100% sold on it just yet. I'm not saying that he has bad cardio, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how he does against a guy like John Jones. Not to mention the top control. I really thought he should have, controlled Dan Henderson a little bit more, but it seemed like Dan Henderson had quite a few tools for him, and I didn't expect that. I mean, with Dan Henderson's wrestling, yes, he's a good wrestler on paper, but you even see guys like Shogun, taking him down. So
yeah,
there's still a lot of questions about Daniel Cormier. We'll see. I don't think he's going to get that title shot just yet. Obviously, Alexander Gustafsson's at the front of the queue. And we'll see if Daniel Cormier does take another fight afterwards. But look, it's always another opportunity for Daniel Cormier to grow and learn and get better and better and get more and more comfortable in that light heavyweight division.
Yeah, and one of the things is obviously Cain Velasquez, he's injured. He can't train with him. Luke Rockhold, he had that foot injury, so your training partners are an important thing coming into a fight, so that could be something that affected his performance. The other thing is, if he does take Jones down, if he ends up in Jones's guard, that's a dangerous place to be. Jones has a lot of submissions, and on the way to a takedown, Jones has a million attacks that he can do that could really stuff Daniel up. So it'll be really interesting. He did say that he's planning on staying on the shelf and not fighting until he gets his title shot. So he's willing to wait till after the Gustafsson Jones fight, but we'll see what Dana White does with him, because it'll be a long wait.
I think that's actually very interesting, because with Daniel Cormier, obviously, I wouldn't say he's necessarily a natural light heavyweight. I think he's a guy who loves his food. I think he can put on body fat pretty quickly. So if he's not training, unless he's dieting all the time, and I don't think he's the guy that likes to diet. So if he says he's going to wait a few months, And that means what? He's either gonna balloon in weight and then have to lose it all in training camp, or he's gonna diet for a long time. So I think that's quite interesting. I think honestly Daniel should take another fight. We've seen it in fighters. If you continue fighting, you're always going to be fresher. If you do anything day in and day out, the more often you do anything, you're going to be better at it. So I think Cormier should take another fight. I don't think it'd be that risky to take a fight against a guy like Phil Davis. Maybe even test himself against Rashad. But I guess we'll see as far as what happens with Daniel Cormier. Moving on to obviously the main event. Now, this is the star attraction. I think it saved the card because the card wasn't overly exciting. It wasn't a crazy card. I think we were starting to get a little bit weary towards the end. But the bantamweight matchup between TJ Dillashaw and Renan Barão, that was a fantastic, fantastic fight.
It was excitement personified. We had TJ on the show. He said some stuff. Here's some of the stuff that TJ said about this matchup coming up that happened with Renan Barão.
Yeah, it is what it is. Barão's been on a 9-year win streak, 30-something fights in a row. So, obviously people are going to overlook me, especially because he's a champ already, It doesn't bother me. It actually it's the first time I'm going to a fight as an underdog, so it's kind of like a stress reliever. I don't go in with these expectations of how good I'm supposed to do, and I actually get to prove everyone wrong. So, I wouldn't say it's bothering me too much, and I don't look into it. I just try to stick to my game plan and what I'm good at.
So there you have it there, guys. TJ very, very sure that he had a good opportunity in this fight. And I'll be honest with you, I thought TJ could pose a lot of problems, but I had no idea there'd be those kinds of problems.
I think towards, fight week, I started really believing that TJ Dillashaw might have a chance because he really did look incredibly hungry. He really looked in the zone. I think I was still struggling to overcome the fact that if Uriah Faber couldn't do it, I don't see how TJ Dillashaw could do it. But man, did he prove a lot of people wrong. And before we get into that actual fight, I'm really curious what Dana White thinks about the situation, because he's really been trying to shove Renan Barão down everybody's throats, not in a bad way. I just think like everyone else would agree, he's a very underrated or ex-champion, you could say. He was destroying guys, crazy win streak, trains with Jose Aldo, etc. But language barrier and lack of a personality stopped him from being a star. So I wonder if Dana White is happy now that TJ Dillashaw, a guy who speaks English, a guy who's a really nice guy who can be marketed, and not only that, but he's obviously the Ultimate Fighter winner. So I think he's only the fourth or fifth, fourth Ultimate Fighter to win a UFC, champion. And then there's the story about him being from Team Alpha Male. Like, there's stories galore there. And I think it's going to be a lot easier to, market the bantamweight division. But honestly, absolutely brilliant performance by TJ Dillashaw. He basically out-Barão'd Barão. He outstruck him. Who would have thought that? Leading up to this fight, Barão was saying TJ Dillashaw thinks he's a striker, and he's not. And, far be it from anyone to criticize Barão for being that confident, because he was wrecking people on the feet. And I don't think anyone expected TJ Dillashaw to beat him up on the feet. I think people thought if he's going to win, it's going to be 5-round decision, destroying people. And what's funny is on our show, when we asked TJ Dillashaw, how are you winning? He didn't say we're going to knock him out or doing that. He said it's going to be a 5-round decision. And the fact that he finished Barão, this guy that's apparently meant to be, according to Dana White, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter, he could have cruised to a decision, no problem. And he didn't at any point let up. And in the 5th round, very late stoppage, he TKO'd, someone who could possibly be one of the greats and best pound for pound. So I can't be more happier for TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, he's a great guy. And, he wasn't that Ultimate Fighter finale. Unfortunately, he lost to John Dodson, so he didn't win it. But, he had a great time over in the Ultimate Fighter house. And we spoke to John Dodson about it in an interview as well, where John said, look, I beat the guy, and we asked him, would you be interested in fighting him in the future? So, there could be a potential matchup where John wants to move back up, to bantamweight, considering he's already beaten Dillashaw. But Dillashaw has some exciting potential matchups. One of them being Dominic Cruz. I don't know if he's going to get a title shot straight away. Dana White said in many interviews that if he wanted one, he could have one. I don't know if he'd actually want to get straight back in there. The other question, of course, is Uriah Faber. He's still hunting for the title. What's going to happen with that whole situation? To be honest with you, I don't see them fighting each other. After seeing... And me and you were talking about this while we were watching his victory. Just Team Alpha Male in general. They're just such a great team. the camaraderie, you know, how happy they were that he won, how they were all there at the fight celebrating. I don't think there's a team out there. I mean, there's a lot of really great teams, but I don't think there's a team out there with that kind of brotherhood in MMA. And you just saw it. Just sincere happiness from Uriah Faber, Joseph Benavidez, you know, Chad Mendes. You know, these guys are superstars in their own right, but they were there supporting their guy. And of course, Dane Ludwig, you know, what a change he's made to that team. So sad to see him leave. Obviously, he's going to open up his own gym, and these guys are going to keep working with him. But all that striking that TJ Dillashaw displayed, obviously, you know, obviously the hard work by Bang Ludwig.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. Bang Ludwig comes in and basically, obviously these guys all train hard, but he essentially turned a camp, a whole team of guys who are dominant wrestlers, into guys who are, you know, I wouldn't say knockout artists, but they're knocking guys out. You know, they're TKOing guys. It's amazing. And I think as far as Uriah Faber goes, you're right. He's not gonna fight TJ Dillashaw. And yeah, my mistake. TJ didn't win the Ultimate Fighter. He did get knocked out by John Dodson. But I think that's another reason why people were looking past him, that he did get knocked out by someone who's fighting flyweight. And now for him to win the title, as far as actual fights coming up, I mean, there's a lot. I think now you do, you know, Rafael Asunko. As soon as he's healthy, you do Rafael Asunko against TJ Dillashaw, do the rematch. I think that was extremely close, and I think there was some dodgy judging there. So I think, you know, if he does beat Rafael Asunko, which I wouldn't look past him, even then there's still other guys that he can fight. You know, Dustin Poirier, he's coming up in the rankings. He's looked like an absolute beast. And that's the thing. If Dustin wins, then we could potentially see, you know, Uriah coming for vengeance. You got Michael Mayday McDonald. You know, there's another guy who's, you know, still very high up there. You know, Sergio Pettis, will see how he can, you know, put things together. You know, Mizugaki. So there's a lot of good challenges there, and I think the bantamweight division, you know, it's going to be exciting. Will he be a long-term champion? I think that's the question. He looked fantastic. The stars aligned for him. But I look forward to seeing TJ tested. He's got all the skill in the world, but we'll see. Is he that good? Did he study the crap out of Hendon Brown? Did the stars align for him, or is he really that good? And you know, he'll be the reigning champ for a long time.
And you know, the funny thing is, you know, TJ Dillashaw, when he was in the Ultimate Fighter finale, he was primarily a wrestler. He was a wrestler. He was mainly a wrestler. That's what he did. He wrestled. Now, in this fight, I mean, he just had the whole package. I mean, his striking was great. His footwork, the way he moved, those combinations, the kicks. He looks like a total package. And the funny thing is, if he does get a fight with Dominic Cruz, just like Renan Barão, TJ Dillashaw knows Cruz very well. I mean, he's helped Uriah prepare for Cruz. Everyone in his camp knows Cruz. They know him like the back of their hand. So amazing game plan by TJ Dillashaw to win this fight. And we always say this, game plan. It's all about the game plan. GSP wouldn't be champion if he didn't have a good game plan. No. TJ Dillashaw wouldn't have won that fight if he didn't have a good game plan. And Jake Ellenberger might have had a different fight if he had a better game plan. So in terms of game plans, Team Alpha Male, they know a lot of these contenders, and I think it's going to help. And not to mention, the guys that he trains with are the best of the best. And it's obvious now TJ is at a certain level thanks to his athleticism and work rate. And I'm excited to see what kind of TJ we'll see next fight. I mean, this guy just improves. He just improved a huge amount, an absolutely unbelievable amount in my eyes. And if he keeps doing it, he may be champion for a while. But then again, like you've mentioned, so many tough names. It'll be interesting to see what happens to TJ.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I still can't believe that if you put all these guys from Team Alpha Male on paper, Uriah Faber, Chad Mendes, you know, all these guys, Danny Castillo, all those guys, if you were going to ask maybe a year and a half ago, who's going to be the first one out of them to get a title, I think most people would say Uriah Faber, followed by Chad Mendes. And you could argue about who would take the top spot there. So for TJ Dillashaw to get that, really, really happy for the guy. Congratulations from Submission Radio and pretty much everybody in Australia to TJ Dillashaw. And, you know, one down. Obviously, his good friend Chad Mendes is up next at UFC 176 against Jose Aldo. So who knows? Team Alpha Male could be one of the premier and dominant training camps in MMA if they've got, you know, two titles, the bantamweight and the featherweight.
That's right, guys. And if you pop on our channel, youtube.com/Submission Radio AU. We've got a great interview with Chad Mendes about his upcoming title fight and his thoughts on Conor McGregor, which, has made a lot of news, people talking about a potential fantasy match up there. So, yeah, check it out. And, yeah, Team Alpha Male, congratulations from Submission Radio. And, speaking of upsets, Will Brooks is someone who had an amazing upset at Bellator 120. They had one of their biggest events. And we've got Bjorn Rebney coming up in an interview.
Yeah, that's right, guys. We're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to get Bjorn on the phone. We'll have a chat to him about Bellator 120, the Tito Ortiz situation, King Mo. Obviously, that's a huge situation. Cut away from UFC 173 for a little bit, and talk to obviously the president of Bellator.
He is the Bellator CEO, coming off from arguably one of their biggest shows at Bellator 120, live on Submission Radio. We have Bjorn Rebney. Bjorn, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you guys for having me on.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure, Bjorn, and let's jump right into it. Now, you're coming off one of Bellator's biggest shows, Bellator 120. It's been a few days now. How are you feeling about the big pay-per-view event?
I'm still riding the high. I'm still feeling the same kind of energy, the same kind of goosebumps I had that night. We had the perfect combination. It was a perfect storm. Great fights, great competition, a little bit of soap opera, great entertainment. Memorable moments. It had all the pieces that I hoped it would have. I was stoked about it then. I'm excited about it now. I always try to come off the high a little bit and 24, 48 hours later look back on it and say to myself, was it as good as I thought it was? And it was. It was a great event. I'm still excited about it, and we had a really, really good night.
Yeah, I would agree. It was a really fun night, and like any good pay-per-view, the next day there was something to talk about. But going back a little bit, the injury bug, we hate him. As the head of, one of the biggest MMA companies in the world, tell us what goes through your head when the main event of your first pay-per-view gets thrown out the window.
Well, look, two things. One, I had always promoted this, and from a promotional and advertising marketing perspective, I had always promoted it as having two main events because I thought Rampage versus Mo had a huge amount of buzz behind it, as did Alvarez Chandler 3, the trilogy fight. So we had an incredible main event to step into that sole position. And then, of course, we had Chandler stay on the card versus Will Brooks. We had all the different pieces in place. Tito in a really interesting, wacko kind of fight against Alexander Shlemenko, et cetera. You never like getting those calls, but to have as many big fights as we had on that card and to only get one call, honestly, is not the end of the world. I mean, you expect that you're going to lose somebody. Ed was the only person we lost. And we'll get to see that trilogy fight at some point coming up in the future. So it wasn't a good call. In a perfect world, we'd all like to be taller, better looking, have nicer hair, and never get an injury call. But that doesn't happen. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I wish we were taller and better good looking, that's for sure. But obviously with the first pay-per-view, it ended up being a free card. Was there any thoughts about doing this one as a free card, or because you had the two main events, you just roll on straight away?
Yeah, never gave a consideration to it. I mean, look, November 2nd was a much different show. That had a lot of spike-worthy fights on it, but without that, with having happened what happened with Cage and Tito, it gave me the context to pause, to wait, to think, and I think the spike move was the right move back then in November. This card was just too packed. I mean, from the moment it kicked off, from Michael Page versus Ricky Rainey, and then moving into the heavyweight tournament championship, and then Tito in a comeback fight that no one knew what to expect, where the odds were 6-1, Shlemenko was a favorite. That had must-see weirdness written all over it. And then the Chandler fight against Brooks, which was just, I knew was going to be epic, and no one else really understood how epic it was going to be because they didn't understand how talented Will Brooks really is. And then obviously with Rampage coming off of 2 first-round knockouts versus King Mo having had the best camp he'd ever had, I just knew we had a pay-per-view card, and I knew that it should remain on pay-per-view and set the table. So it never crossed my mind.
Now, Bjorn, obviously a lot of people really enjoyed Bellator 120. They enjoyed the big card feel, the big event feel. It was really a spectacular spectacle. But what everybody's wondering now is, will you be trying to do more of these pay-per-views in the future and building up a card over a month's time rather than a lot of the other Bellator pay-per-views that aren't built up just as much?
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll do more pay-per-view. But we're not going to ever be the UFC. We're never going to do a pay-per-view every 2.5, 3 weeks whether it's good or not good. We're never going to force feed premium content on people and ask for, $39 or $49 or $45 or $35 from them, unless I feel when I look at the card that it's got huge value to it and it's got big fights and it's warranted to be a premium event. This one was, and we probably will be doing another one sometime over the next, 6 or 9 months, but they'll be few and far between. They're going to be the best of the best, and we're going to continue to work with Spike, literally the worldwide leader in MMA content production and promotion and distribution. We're going to keep working with Spike, doing 25 shows a year that build those stars out to fuel those 2 or maybe 3 big pay-per-views per year. But we're not going to turn into the animal that consistently relies on pay-per-view, because it's just not. You want them to be big, you want them to be special, you want them to have big storylines, and that's the key to success in that market.
Yeah, and you did mention the UFC has a few pay-per-views that might not have the biggest cards, and do you think that is one of the criticisms of the UFC? There are a few pay-per-views there where the cards aren't stacked as high as they should be.
Yeah, look, I've never hidden the fact that I've been an MMA fan for 2 decades. I used to watch Pride years ago when no one had any idea what it was, and I've watched jungle fights out of Brazil, and I've watched all the different organizations. And I used to watch the UFC before UFC ever transitioned to Spike TV here in the domestic U.S. But there was a time when they had great pay-per-views, and the pay-per-views were big events. And now what it feels like to me is it feels like just a repetition. It's like whether it's a big event or a small event, or whether it's got great fights or mediocre fights, it's always there. And the expectation is always that people should pay for it. And I think that when you're asking people to dig into their pocket for hard-earned dollars, whether it's $35 or $45 or $55, you should be providing entertainment to them that really warrants that kind of a premium purchase. And I think that, part of the reason that the UFC has experienced a real downturn in their average pay-per-view buy rates is that that's not happening the way that it used to. So as we looked at it as a company, and as we talked to our partners at Spike and at Viacom, we said, look, we'll do pay-per-views, but we'll do pay-per-views when we think they're warranted and when fans think they're warranted, and we'll do them few and far between. There'll be something special. And the rest of the time, we'll give great fights to folks for free on Spike TV and to the 140 countries around the world where our shows are distributed. But I think that's a pretty substantial point of difference between us and the other group.
I would agree. Also, going back to Bellator 120, in any business, even in regards to Submission Radio, we're always celebrating the little victories. Looking for ways to improve in the future. In terms of the pay-per-view, what would you say was the best thing about it, and what would you look to improve on in the future?
Well, I think the best thing about the pay-per-view that we had last Saturday night was that the fights delivered. And look, you can spend a ton of money producing the show, and you can promote and market it, and you can produce great feature pieces and stories behind the fighters, and you can do all the different bells and whistles. But if the fights aren't great, and if the combat's not compelling, it doesn't matter how good all the rest of it is. So I think the number one thing that I look to is that our talent development department did an amazing job developing the Michael Chandlers and the Will Brookses of the world, and we did a great job working hand-in-hand in partnership with Rampage, recrafting him and giving him love for the game again, and getting him back to the Rampage of old, and King Mo had a great camp, and all of those pieces worked. So the fights were compelling. The odds makers had Tito as a 6-1 underdog. They had Will Brooks as a 7-1 underdog. Both of those guys ended up, pulling off what some people thought were amazing upsets. I thought were expected performances. So that's what really makes it work. That's what really makes it sing. I think in terms of improvement and things that I might do differently, pacing-wise, looking at the show now 6 or 7 times, we're always trying to force as much water through the fire hose as we can when we do our shows on a weekly basis on Spike. We're trying to put as many fights on TV as possible. So we're always rushing. We're always running really fast, trying to make the show have more fights and more fights and more fights. We took a little bit of a break off of that, and we gave more time between fights, told more stories, spent more time doing interviews. I think we may have gone a little too far. I think the pacing was a little bit slow for my taste as a pure fight fan. And that's just a live and learn thing. I mean, the fights when they got in were awesome, but I would probably do it a little bit quicker next time we do it. But those are that's the high water mark, and if I had anything I'd look to improve, it's probably that.
And a lot of fans did mention that, but I think it is a very small part of the pay-per-view criticism. So I think people really did enjoy the event. But speaking of Will Brooks, this is a star coming out of the event. He beat Chandler. He looked great. What were your thoughts? Number one, on the judges' scorecards, because a lot of people thought the scorecards didn't really reflect the fight. What were your thoughts on that? And what do you see in the future for Will?
Well, as I looked at the fight, and then I answered Fight Night, and when I'm typically asked questions post-fight in the post-fight press conference and in interviews, which go on for hours post-fight, I typically try to kind of play the role of a politician and say, hey, I haven't seen the fight on tape. But that one I watched really clearly. I thought Mike won 1 and 2. And on my scorecards, Mike won 1 and 2, no questions asked. Will, on my scorecard, won 3 and 4. I thought going into the fifth and final round, we had a fight that would be won by the guy who won the fifth. And I think that if you know MMA scoring and you're aware of how judges score a fight, it is not based on the most impactful moment that happened in the fight on any given round. It's based on who actually won the round, and the round is a 5-minute expanse of time. As I watched that round, I had Will Brooks winning over 3 minutes and 40 seconds of the round. Now, there's no questions asked. Mike Chandler had Will in a lot of trouble at the end of the fight. That last probably 80 to 90 seconds, Mike won that part of the round. But because you close out a round looking really good doesn't take away from the fact that for that first 3:30 or 3:40 of the round, Will was controlling the action, and if the fight had stopped at 3:30 or 3:40, you'd have to give it to Will. So it's the totality of that 5 minutes in your judging criteria. And so as I looked at that fifth, no doubt Mike had a little bit more of an electrifying moment, but it was just that. It was a minute and a half. It wasn't the 3:30 that preceded it, the 3:30, 3:40, whatever it was. And so I scored that last round for Will Brooks, and I gave him the fight. I think he won the fight 3 rounds to 2, but it was ridiculously close, and it was great. And the future for Will Brooks, absolutely unlimited. This kid is a freak phenom. The athleticism, the explosiveness, the striking, the kicks, the wrestling base, all the pieces of it. He's got incredible drive. I've talked to a lot of his teammates, and they say that nobody in the gym actually works harder than he does. He's the guy who shows up early, leaves late, is always looking to improve every facet of his game. The maturation in this kid's game has been unbelievable. He's got an unlimited future in this game. He could literally be number one in the world, and he could be it in shorter order than anyone thought he could.
Absolutely. Will, and Noel's right, an amazing fighter. I'm just wondering your thoughts on Mike's performance. A lot of people think that Mike might have overlooked Will a little bit. Maybe, no, but he let Will take his back in a lot of the positioning. What were your thoughts on Mike's performance? Do you think he did overlook Will a little bit coming into this one?
I don't know. Mike is such a fierce competitor. Chandler's as fierce of a competitor as we've got in the game. I think that, look, what we had set up and what Mike was prepping for month after month was really, in my mind, the best trilogy fight in the history of MMA. He was preparing for one specific fighter. Everything was geared toward that fighter. We did 2 30-minute specials on Spike TV specifically about one fighter. It was Ed Alvarez versus Mike Chandler, Mike Chandler versus Ed Alvarez. Everything he was thinking about was him. And so when Mike gets that call 8 days out saying Ed's got a concussion, Ed's out, you're fighting Will, even though Mike's a fantastic warrior, even though Mike responded and said, I'm in, don't worry, I'll fight, I'm not walking away, the air in the balloon was let out. When you call Will Brooks and you make that call and you go, hey, you're not fighting Nate Jolly in a 3, but you're fighting one of the best fighters on the face of the earth, Michael Chandler, one of the greatest lightweights we got in MMA, and by the way, the interim belt's on the line, and by the way, you're going to make twice as much money, et cetera, all the air goes into the balloon. So psychologically, you've got 2 completely different fighter situations, and it's just human nature. I mean, if you're expecting to go to an unbelievable event, to experience something unreal, and somebody calls you right before you're going to go and says, it's not going to be that, and you make a call to somebody else and you go, hey, you're expecting to go to this B-level experience, and suddenly we're going to give you an A++ level experience, and by the way, you're going to make more money, be on a bigger stage, more is going to be at stake, it's going to be awesome, and you're a competitor at heart. Everything, all the air goes into the balloon. So I just think that it's one of those situations. It's just that Mike, no matter how much of a warrior you are, no matter how good of an athlete you are, what you've done, it's hard psychologically to right the ship when that happens to you. And I think we may have seen some of that. Mike's a fierce competitor, but it's just you can't. It's difficult for any athlete to overcome that kind of a letdown when you're looking forward to fighting. In a fight that you could make the argument would have determined the best lightweight in the world, or surely one of the top two.
That's actually a really great breakdown, Bjorn. I wanted to also ask you. Obviously, next logical question is, when can we expect Brooks versus Alvarez?
Well, I mean, that's the question. I said it post-fight. Per Ed's agreement, per all the settlement agreement that we had with Ed to make all these fights happen, the next fight in Ed's contract is Michael Chandler, and that's per his agreement with us. So, we're going to have to sit down and we're going to have to talk with Ed and talk with all the relative participants. But but it could be Chandler Alvarez 3 in the trilogy, and it could be Will Brooks defending the interim belt. Against one of our tournament winners. That could be the scenario that ends up unfolding, because contractually Ed is contracted per his settlement to fight Mike in this second fight. So that may end up being the route that we have to go.
As you mentioned, the Tito Shlemenko fight, Tito coming out on top, a huge fan favorite. After that fight, everybody, screaming, yelling. I think, Tito has a place in everybody's heart when they're an MMA fan, but I'm just wondering, what do you think of doing with Tito next? Obviously, he was in the post-fight press conference. He seemed very confident, talked about his injuries all the time, but that's okay. We're used to it. What are you thinking about with Tito next? Are you looking to put him in a spot where he fights a few other guys in the light heavyweight division and possibly give him a shot at the title? Or are you looking to maybe make a fight with Rampage next or something like that?
I don't know. You know what? The dream scenario for somebody who sits in my seat is to have options. That's the best possible case you can be in. Is optionality is a gift from the MMA gods. And right now, at 155 pounds, there's some optionality. At 170 pounds, I've got optionality. At featherweight, I got optionality. And now at 205, I've got optionality. I got Tito, who was all but written off in everyone's book, and who just had this great performance against a world-class champion at 85. And now there's some different roads we can pursue. Now the question now is not, oh, Tito's washed up. The question now is, what did that fight on Saturday prove? And is Tito really back? And now, so we want to step up, and I don't know what exactly we're going to do next. I mean, part of it involves Rampage and what we do next there, and if that next fight is Emmanuel Newton for the world title, and then we got to talk to Tito, and we got to make a determination what's next for Mo, and there's a lot of pieces to that equation, but they all come out of Saturday night having heightened their sense of relevance. So I don't have an answer for you right now, but there are a lot of good options, and that's what you'd be willing to kill for as a promoter to have.
Now, another question, as far as Shlemenko, it was a very interesting fight going obviously up to the light heavyweight division against Tito, and it was a great fight. It was a fun fight. I'd say the only downside is that it broke the long win streak, of the middleweight champion since 2010. Do you think this hurts Shlemenko's star power in any way?
I don't, but I think the problem from a consumer perception standpoint is that so many people were looking at this fight and thinking that Shlemenko was the overwhelming favorite. And what I kept barking about and talking about before the fight was, say what you will, but Tito Ortiz is one of the biggest light heavyweights in the game. He's a guy who is rock solid at 235, who somehow cuts down to 205, and then comes into the cage with dabs at 230 to 235. And Shlemenko is a European middleweight who should probably be fighting at welterweight, who will come into the cage at less than 200 pounds. So you're talking about a monster human being versus a very small middleweight. And I said, you got to keep that in mind. If Tito plays this right, he takes Shlemenko, puts his back up against the cage, brings him down to the mat, and uses that amazing strength and size when they're still dry early in the first to finish the fight. That's what happened. Now, what would have happened if the fight had gone past the first and Shlemenko had been able to keep distance and had been able to stuff takedowns? I think we might have seen a completely different fight. But what I thought could happen is exactly what did happen, and nobody was taking that into account. So when a huge man fights a smaller man, does that take away from what Slamenko has done at 185? Does it take away from how dominant he's been as a middleweight champion and from the amazing performances he's put on? I don't know. It's a tough question. We're going to have to see how people respond as he gets back into the cage to defend that 85 belt. But don't lose track of the fact he was 35 pounds smaller, 35 pounds smaller than Tito when they went into that cage, and you could see it when they stepped in and after Tito made that glorious entrance. So I don't know. I don't know what it answers about Tito, and I'm not sure how it impacts Slamenko. But you got to remember, size matters. That's why we have weight divisions in MMA, and that's what made this fight so weird and compelling for me. Is size actually matters. Featherweights don't fight welterweights. And what you basically had here is you had a big welterweight fighting a big light heavyweight, and the results were what logic would tell you they could have been.
Another thing I wanted to ask you, obviously, in terms of light heavyweights, one thing that came out from 120 is the uncertainty of Rampage fighting Emmanuel Newton for the title. A big difference between, obviously, UFC and Bellator is the tournament format. Do you think, with Rampage and the uncertainty that he may or may not fight Emmanuel Newton, do you think it's dangerous to sort of do that, given that it might undermine one of the greatest aspects of Bellator, which is the tournament format?
Well, look, I think one of the reasons that we've had such a good relationship with Rampage and that he's excited again about being a mixed martial artist and that he stayed in shape and never got above 230 at camp and has been, driven to get back to be one of the best in the world is we're working with him as a partner. We're not dictating to him. We're not calling him on the phone or having a matchmaker call him and tell him who he's going to fight and if he's injured, telling him he has to fight, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, the best way to approach things with somebody like Page is to continue to approach it as a partnership. So I've got to sit down with him. We've got to go through the dynamics. I would very much like to see Emmanuel versus Quentin Rampage Jackson. It's a fight that he earned vis-a-vis winning the tournament. Newton's one of the best light heavyweights in the world. He doesn't get the credit for it, but he sure deserves the credit for it. And that's a fight I would love to see. But I'm not going to be one that's going to sit here with the big promoter's hat and suit on and say this is what's going to happen, win, lose, or draw. I want to talk to Page about it. I want to sit down with him and hopefully we can get that done.
And just another thing on the tournament format, it's worked really well for you guys for up until now. Is it something that Bellator will be staying with, for the future, or do you see the tournament format, maybe being changed, edited, or even going completely out the window at some point in Bellator's future?
Well, I never see it going out the window. I think the reality is that when I started this company, when I started building it in 2008 and then launched it in 2009, the essence of our point of difference was that we were real sports competition. We weren't guys in a shiny suit deciding who was going to fight who for what and when. We weren't going to hand-pick guys that we thought we could sell to consumers. We were going to let fighters earn it through a tournament. So that's not going anywhere. And that tournament structure gave us Eduardo Dantas, it gave us Pat Kern, it gave us Michael Chandler, it gave us Ed Alvarez, it gave us Alexander Slamenko, Doug Lima. The list goes on and on. It's recreated, in many people's mind, Quentin Rampage Jackson. It has given him a platform through which, in real short order, he could win seminal fights against good fighters and put himself in position for a world title fight. So that's not going anywhere. Will we make adjustments? Will we make small tweaks? Will we change things ever so slightly to give us a little bit more flexibility? Yeah, we did that with the championship rematch clause. There are some other small changes we're looking at. But at its core, those 8-man and 4-man tournaments are going to stay in play because that's what's allowed us to develop, a collection of the greatest fighters in all of MMA.
Absolutely, and I think it's definitely a very interesting time in Bellator to see what happens in the evolution and all of that. One of the other things we wanted to talk to you about is obviously the Rampage King Mo fight. King Mo came out. He said some things about Bellator. He said some things about you, and some people were just wondering, what's your relationship like with Mo? Where do you see Mo going from here? And did you know that he had these kinds of feelings before the event happened?
Well, I knew that Mo had a lot of pressure on him going into this fight. I mean, look, let's be honest with ourselves. When we signed Mo, coming off of the suspension, the drug suspension, and the Nevada State Athletic Commission suspension, there was a lot of high hope for Mo recreating himself. At the time, we didn't have the depth at the 205 division that we do now, so the expectation, I think, from Mo and from us as well was that he was probably well positioned to capture the title here. Well, it didn't, Mo has has gone 4-3 here and lost 3 of his last 6. So it hasn't gone the way he expected. It hasn't gone the way we expected. Now, the caveat to that is Mo lost twice to Emmanuel Newton. And whereas when he lost the first time, it was a shock. When he lost the second time, everybody said, wow, this Emmanuel Newton is really, really talented. This could be one of the better 205ers in the space. He just faced Rampage Jackson, and Rampage Jackson is back. And he's back to loving the game. He's back to training. We got his knees fixed by the same specialist who fixed Kobe Bryant's knees. So there's no shame in having lost twice to Emmanuel Newton and Rampage. But I think Mo was under a lot of pressure, legacy pressure, position in the space pressure, money pressure, etc. And so that loss obviously was not a good one for him. And I think you saw some of that reaction emotionally post-fight. He was very upset. Now look, I've said it, and oftentimes I step away from saying, here's how I think a fight should have been scored, or I agree or disagree. But a lot of the judges have been interviewed, and I agree with the judges that have been interviewed. I think that, look, I think Mo clearly won the first round with takedowns. I think Rampage clearly won the second round, controlling the fight in the stand-up game and landing more solid punches. And the third was very close. But as I review the third round, and as I've looked at it, now I've watched it multiple times, Mo landed a takedown, and Rampage controlled the fight standing, landed more effective punches, and pressed the action. So I don't have any hesitation saying the same thing that I said post-fight, which was, as I watched the fight, and I've been around a lot of fights, I think Rampage won the fight. So, and I do understand Mo's being upset. I'm obviously not thrilled with his choice of words, and I think he went overboard. But the reality is, I understand how much it was at stake for Mo. I understood and I understand how he thought this was going to be a linchpin moment for him to reestablish himself after those 2 losses in sequence to Emmanuel Newton, and it didn't work out. And that's got to be a tremendous shock to the system. And his reaction was emotional and powerful, and had a lot of soap opera feel to it, and added a lot of intrigue and a lot of weird emotion to the event. But it doesn't. There was a lot on the line, and it didn't work out. And so I'm not shocked by the reaction.
And have you spoken to Mo since? Obviously, it's been a few days since the event. Have you had a chance to speak with him and see what he's feeling like now?
Well, he and I spoke post-event because first I wanted to get it, right from the horse's mouth. I wanted to find out what was going on because I didn't expect it. Because Mo and I have had pretty good communication over the last few years, ever since I signed him, and then I got him to deal with TNA, and we've done a lot of things, and we were doing a lot of things in terms of promotion of the event. So I confronted him backstage. It was like, hey, let's pull away from everybody else, get the microphone away from you, and tell me what the hell's going on. But we haven't had any kind of communication since then, and he's done a lot of interviews. He's still obviously real upset with what he thinks is a bad decision. But he's a competitor, and here's the bottom line with King Mo. I still think that he's a very, very talented fighter. I mean, look, the questions were coming out of Mo's horrible knee injury, where he almost died of staph infection, and the suspensions and the drug allegations and the drug suspensions was, can Mo ever come back to being what he was? If you saw the explosiveness in those takedowns in the first round, where he did win the first round, and you saw the way the support, you saw the explosiveness, you saw the knees, you saw everything working, it answered a lot of questions for me in terms of whether King Mo can ever go back to being that fighter. And I think there's a potential that he can. So I still have a lot of belief that King Mo has a lot of gas in the tank. I think King Mo could potentially do some really explosive things here. And look, this was a very close fight against a Quentin Rampage Jackson, who I believe is fighting at a level very close to the level he was fighting at in some of those most memorable fights we've ever seen with Rampage. So he lost a close fight to an awesome fighter at 205 pounds. So I still believe that Mo can do powerful things, and I think that there's a future for King Mo here. He's got a lot of fights left with us, and I think that we could see him in some big fights.
And Bjorn, just on that fight, obviously with Rampage, towards the the end of his UFC run, he seemed a little bit disinterested. Obviously a big part of that was the UFC. He seems really rejuvenated coming into Bellator, but he's also signed on to other things such as TNA, and there is that possibility of him doing movies. Now with his sort of foot planted in so many things, do you think it'd be tough for Rampage to be the Bellator champ? And do you know if he does want to be the Bellator champ?
Well, I mean, I think the pinnacle, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for fighters is that strap, is the world title strap. And I know it's something he and I have talked about many times, so I think he wants it. There are some issues and hurdles in the way of that just because of the fact that he and Newton share a trainer. And I think, we saw that with Rashad and John, and we've seen it before at the top level in MMA. It just so happens we've also seen it at 205. And I think that's one of the issues that we've got to get through. The advantage that we've got with Paige is that those TV opportunities and the film opportunities, the reality show projects we're working on with our partners at Spike, the film opportunities are all things that we're doing together. So what's not happening is like what happened when he was with the UFC, when he was fighting and then got an incredible opportunity from an outside source to do a film project called The A-Team, which did hundreds of millions of dollars worldwide, and then stepped away from the fight game. So what we're able to do, because of the power and the expanse of Viacom, is to have all of those things working in unison. That's part of what makes this relationship between Bellator, Viacom, Spike so powerful for a fighter, is that we can orchestrate television at the right time. We can do the production at the right time. We can execute a film project and have his shoot time at the right time. And then we can stop those things and put everything in a hold pattern so that he can go train. Or I can call Dixie on the cell phone at TNA and I can say, hey, let's carve out this 70-day period for Rampage to do all these cool things with TNA Impact. Then we want to do a 15-day shoot with Spike for X or Y or Z. Then we need to go back in for 7 weeks uninterrupted for his camp to prep for this fight. So the coordination is all there. And I think what's happened in the past with him is he got an incredible opportunity to do an incredible movie that was wildly successful, and he went and did it, which is what he should have done, because it helps build up the Quentin Rampage Jackson brand and the Q score, but it wasn't coordinated with the promotional company, so they got very upset by it. Well, we've got everything under one umbrella, so we're all working in unison as partners, and I think we'll be able to keep that all coordinated.
Yeah, and Bjorn, I wanted to ask you also, you mentioned Viacom, between you, Spike, and Viacom, you guys are like a superpower, and they are obviously a huge partner of Bellator. I wanted to know how they felt about the pay-per-view, and also a lot of fans wanted to know how many years are left in the contract with them.
Well, with us and Viacom, in terms of the length of the contract, Viacom is now our majority owner. So when I say partner, they're legitimately our partner. They're not. A lot of people in the television business say, "Oh, they're our partner," and they mean it kind of from a floaty, subjective perspective. Viacom is legitimately our partner. They own a majority stake in the company. I used to own, the vast majority of stock in Bellator. Now I'm a minority shareholder and am partners with Viacom and am the CEO and chairman of this company. But we're all in it for the very long haul. It's not like a typical TV agreement where you would say, oh, there's 2 or 3 years left on my TV agreement. We're actually business partners together. So when we're thinking and planning and structuring, we're looking 3, 5, 7 years down the road in terms of where we're going, what we're doing, what the next strategic steps are, et cetera. And as an executive producer of television, as a CEO and chairman of a company, that is the ideal position to be in. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Look, when the UFC is dealing with Fox, they're dealing with a complete separate entity. When we're dealing with Viacom and Spike, we're sitting down at our board meetings with our partners. Kevin Kay, who heads Spike TV, is a gentleman I speak to 2-3 times a day, and he sits on the board that I'm the chairman of. So we're literally working hand in hand to make this bigger and better and more entertaining and more consumer and fan friendly. So it's about as good of a relationship as you could hope to have.
And just quickly, something that you guys sort of built on for Bellator was obviously Fox Sports Latino, which is very interesting because obviously even the UFC doesn't have connections with them, and that's obviously as a way to plant the seeds in international markets. How's that going so far?
Oh, it's going awesome. I mean, and it sounds counterintuitive to fans to say Bellator is partnered with Fox in Latin America. And we did the largest distribution deal in the history of Latin America with Fox. So if you go to Mexico or Chile or Peru or Brazil or Argentina or Ecuador, the list goes on and on and on, you will see Bellator live and free on Fox Sports. And it covers all of Central America, all of South America, and all of Mexico. It's the largest distribution deal in the history of Latin America for mixed martial arts. And they've been an amazing partner. They've been a spectacular partner. And when we announced it, I think some people thought it was an April Fool's joke because it says, Bellator partners with Fox. But we did it, and they've been an amazing partner for us. They had a live booth at the pay-per-view. They had 3 different reporters on site, 2 calling the fight and 1 roving, and worked hand in hand with us to bring, fans, millions of fans throughout all of Latin America, that great event live. And it went off beautifully. The ratings have been incredible. It's been a great partnership, and it's another 5 years in the making now. We just kicked off the first year, and it's got another 5 years on it. They've been a great partner.
And you're very accurate, Bjorn. It's all about relationships and partnerships. Obviously, the UFC's partnership with Fox, a lot of people put some criticism on that, and people aren't sure if Fox and UFC are going to go on forward once the contract expires due to some mixed results and ratings. What are your thoughts on the UFC-Fox relationship? Do you think there's going to be a relationship that's going to keep on going, or do you think there's a possibility it might end at the end of this contract?
Boy, that's a very, very good question. I know that I think and the articulation has been from UFC management, but they articulated an expectation of success numbers-wise that they have not yet achieved. So it brings up interesting questions. I don't know. My relationship with Fox is with the team down in Latin America, who are apart and distinct and separate from the team in America. Or in North America. But it's difficult to tell. It's never an easy task launching a new network or a new series of networks. There is an awful lot of UFC content out there. Some of it is good, some of it is not so good. And they're having a more difficult time now maintaining higher levels of pay-per-view buy rates on average. Their pay-per-view buy rates have dipped down. So it's difficult to tell. Only time will tell, and ultimately that's a decision that Fox is going to make. Very smart people over there. I'm sure they'll make a good decision. But it's interesting that the conversation comes up, and it's interesting when I get asked about it because you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen, but ultimately we'll see it play itself out.
And speaking of contracts, obviously Nate Diaz, not very happy over at the UFC. They've been wanting to get out of their contracts. More example of fighters who haven't had the best experience with the UFC. Would they be someone that you'd be interested in the future potentially if they can get out of the contracts, or if opportunities presented to you to buy them out of their contracts and get them over to Bellator? Obviously, they're very exciting fighters.
That's always a good question, and whenever I'm on with somebody who knows the MMA space, I typically get that question. It's always a touchy one because from a legal perspective, a person in my position has got to be very careful about how you answer that so that no one can take aim at you for intentionally interfering with an existing contract. To the best of my knowledge, both Nate and Nick have existing contracts with the UFC. The status of those contracts, or whether they're being told, which means put on hold, where they sit, how much time is left, etc., is something I don't know anything about. I can tell you this: Nate and Nick are very exciting. They obviously draw a great deal of interest. People care about them, whether they love them or they hate them. People have an opinion about them, both Nate and Nick. And they both put on wickedly exciting fights. So as an MMA fan, taking my CEO and chairman's hat off, because it's an important hat for me to take off when I talk about guys like that, I like watching them fight. I think they're exciting and entertaining guys to watch fight, and I like listening to them talk when they're both positive and negative. So who knows? Who knows what the future holds?
Now, in terms of going back to 120 and stars in general, with MMA, it's so funny. Guys that were coming up yesterday are, close to retirement now. It's evolving so fast. In terms of stars, there's a lot of guys coming up in Bellator now. And, they're really getting up there with the ranks of, the other people who've pioneered MMA. Who would you say is the biggest star in Bellator at the moment?
Wow. It depends. It depends on where you look. Talk about a nice question to have to ponder, because it wasn't that long ago, 3 years ago, where I could have told you exactly who the biggest stars were, because we only had a select group of them. And now you look at it and you say, well, look, is it Pat Curran because of the amazing run he had and a Fight of the Year candidate against Daniel Strauss, one of the greatest featherweights in MMA, and what he went through and how he came back? Is it Quentin Rampage Jackson for his comeback to the cage, for his love and enthusiasm for the game, and for these 3 back-to-back wins, 2 of which were first-round knockouts? Is even coming off of a loss? Is it a Mike Chandler? Is it an Ed Alvarez? Is it a Will Brooks as a new up-and-coming superstar who showed great athleticism and incredible personality and great drive and an incredible gas tank and a full set of skills? I don't know. Is it Eduardo Dantas, who's a freak of nature at 135? Is it the 39-year-old who's closer to my age than most of the fighters that fight in our cage, Joe Warren, who just beat Rafael Silva, one of the toughest bantamweights in the world, to capture our interim title, who's a monster and who's a huge person? I don't know. It's just talk about, is it Doug Lima? Doug Lima, in my mind, and I'm getting a little deep here, but Doug Lima, in my mind, our welterweight champion, is the most exciting, explosive welterweight in mixed martial arts today. Now, you can argue all day, is he the best welterweight in MMA? And everybody's going to have an opinion. But I will tell you this, there is not a more explosive, more exciting knockout artist at 170 pounds on the face of the earth than Doug Lima. That I will tell you without any question, and I will defend that comment to the death. That guy is an absolute rock star, and he's one of the nicest, most charismatic, cool dudes you'd ever want to meet. Movie star good looks, great personality, and he will kick and knock your head off. So, I don't know. What a great problem to have that I can keep droning on about fighter after fighter who I think might be the biggest guy in the organization.
Now, Bellator, Bjorn, we've got some fan questions for you, but before we jump to the fan questions, I just have one last question for you, and this is about these new gloves that you guys are creating to reduce eye pokes. I just wanted to find out, is there an update on how those gloves are coming along? Because it's kind of hard to imagine a glove that could do that. If you know anything about it, please let us know. And also, obviously, you mentioned you'd love to share it with the UFC. Obviously, John Jones would really benefit from gloves like that. Are you still open to sharing that glove around with other organizations in MMA?
Well, 2 questions. One, we just put out a release on that not long ago, and we have not had, to date, in this full season, one handbrake since we transferred to this new Everlast glove. And we had 8. I believe it's 8. I may get the 2 seasons confused, but the prior season we either had 8 or 9, and the season before that we either had 9 or 8. And I don't remember which season was which. But the decrease in the number of broken hands and the decrease in the number of eye pokes has been absolutely astronomical. This glove is spectacular in terms of fighter safety, and nothing knocks guys out of fights more often and in terms of being able to come back and fight again soon or fight again in 3, 4, 5, or 6 months than handbrakes. And this glove, over the last season at least, has eliminated that. It is some of the more shocking and great technology that I've ever seen in a combat sports piece of equipment. And Everlast worked with some of our team in the design process, made alterations and tweaks. Everlast has produced the glove. It is an amazing, amazing piece of equipment. Now, it's not a training glove. It's a legitimate 4-ounce mixed martial arts fighting glove for professionals. But I'll tell you, it's a piece of equipment that we should get into the hands of every and any fighter who's fighting professionally anywhere, because it literally protects their hands. It's a spectacular new piece of equipment. And
that's a fantastic move, in the sport of MMA in general, because obviously no one likes hand injuries. As far as the fan questions go, Bjorn, Hot Rhythm wants to know, are you guys going to be adding a women's division anytime soon?
That's a great question. I get that one all the time. We had a women's division. We had a great women's division. We had Jessica Aguilar, who was #1 in the world at 15. We had Megumi Fujii, who preceded Jag at 115 as the best in the world, #1. We had Jessica Evil Eye, who, when she was with us, was #1 in the world at 125. We were in the women's MMA business, and obviously the UFC is in the Ronda Rousey business. And we were trying to build up that aspect of the game, not around one singular woman to put on the cover of magazines and to promote and just keep feeding opponents to, but the entirety of the game. It wasn't working for us because of the numbers weren't there to support it, and the depth wasn't there. So in answer to the question, and I've got an amazing amount of respect for Jessica Aguilar, for Jessica Eye, for Megumi, for a lot of these women who fought with us and performed at a very high level for us. But from a business perspective, it just didn't return on investment. It just didn't work. So we're out of it for now. Does that mean we'll never get back into it? No, but for the time being, our focus is on the men's game. But I say that, I always try to caveat it and say I've got incredible respect for the ladies who do it. There are some wickedly talented women out there fighting. They should get more coverage. But it's not an area of the business that we're in right now or we're going to be in for the foreseeable future.
I'm just seeing a women's tournament in my head right now, and I think it's something really exciting that Bellator could do in the future. But definitely, yeah, it's great that you're keeping the doors open. Now, the Brown Ranger, and that's a funny name right there, all in itself, would like to know, how do you think your champions would do against some of the UFC's top fighters?
Well, look, I never get into the business of saying we want to do this versus that or this versus that, because we're focused on our business. I think Eduardo Dantas can beat anyone in the world. I think Pat Curran for 14 or 15 months was ranked number 2 in the world. Then he had the setback against Strauss and then beat Strauss in the rematch to recapture the world title. I'll take my chances on Pat Curran versus anybody. I'll take my chances on Daniel Strauss versus anybody on earth, including Jose Aldo or anyone else. Ed, Mike, Will at 55. I put them in against any 355ers on the face of the earth. Given that GSP is not in the space right now, and given that there are a lot of different 70-pounders out there, but if you look across the expanse of MMA, at 70, they're mostly strikers. They're reliant upon their striking. They rely on their striking. That's where you see the strength in the welterweight division right now across the full expanse of MMA. I think Doug Lima beats anybody on earth. If you're standing up inside of a cage and you're 170 pounds, I'll put my money on Doug Lima putting you to sleep. I know that Shlemenko just had a tough run at 85 at fighting as a 205er, but as an 85er, I think he's one of the best on earth. Rampage, Newton, I love both of those guys against anybody at 205. John Jones is obviously a complete freak, and I got wild respect for John in terms of what he can do. I think Minikoff is an amazingly talented heavyweight. Volkov, while looking like a professional basketball player for the San Antonio Spurs, is actually a wickedly talented heavyweight as well. His defensive jiu-jitsu is great. His wrestling is very good for a Russian fighter. For any fighter who's not an American raised in Iowa, his wrestling is actually very good. And his striking I'll put his striking in against anybody in the world. So I like our chances against anyone on earth, and I think that's what gave us the opportunity to keep this pay-per-view in play. That's what's given us consistently improved and higher ratings all the time, is that people are looking at it and saying to themselves, they have got some amazingly talented fighters who can compete with anybody in the world. So I like our chances against anybody.
Now, another fan question, Bjorn Nighthawk68, he wants to know, in terms of the uniforms that could be possibly employed in the UFC, what are your thoughts on this? And will Bellator be following suit and having uniforms of their own?
Now, I've always felt like that we have a platform, and our platform allows us as a company to make money on television licensing fees, international television licensing fees, sponsorship, venue fees, ticket sales, merchandising. I've always felt like fighters from a sponsorship perspective should be able to reap as much financial benefit out of that as they can. I've never employed a sponsor tax, nor will I ever employ a sponsor tax. No sponsor on earth is ever going to have to pay us money to pay a fighter money. You can pay a fighter money directly. We don't expect to get any part of that vig. We don't expect to get a percentage. We don't expect to get a take on that. We don't charge you to pay our fighters a sponsorship to be in our cage, nor will we exclude you from being on one of our fighters in the cage. And I think the uniform comes into that. I think let the fighters wear what the fighters want to wear. Let them get their own apparel deals. Let them benefit 100% from that apparel deal. I think uniforms work great in baseball. Uniforms work great in Australian rules football and in American football and in basketball and hockey. Mixed martial arts combat is a completely different thing. It's an individual sport. Express yourself individually. You don't need to all walk in a specific uniform. Wear what you want to wear, dress how you want to dress, represent who you want to represent, and keep the money from that to yourself. And I've always felt that way. So there's no conceivable option right now I see for us implementing a uniform policy the way that the UFC has talked about it.
Now, Bjorn, to finish things off, to round things out, we have a bonus round. We call it the Submission Radio Tapout Round. GQ Magazine rates it the top 5 tapout rounds worldwide, so we're happy to be ranked. It's not like the UFC ranking. It means a little bit more here. What we're going to do is we're going to ask you a bunch of questions, and it's like a word association. You just give us the first thing that comes into your head. So when you're ready, we're going to kick it off.
Yeah. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, now when you look at Bellator now and when it all started, you have to pinch yourself sometimes to see to look at the progress and everything that you guys have done.
I pinch myself sometimes, but it is getting closer to what I had visioned in my head.
Okay, now your dad is obviously the famous Winnebago man and known as the angriest man in the world. If there was a documentary on your life, what would the title be?
The most pleasantly relentless man in the world.
What does Bjorn Rebney like to do to relax?
I love to go to sushi and movies with my incredibly beautiful, charming, intelligent wife.
Good answer. If you could sign one fighter who's now retired in their prime to fight in Bellator, who would it be?
Probably Rickson Gracie.
Are drugs a problem in MMA?
Yes.
Do fighters get to choose their own entrance music, or does it depend on a wide range of factors?
Fighters at Bellator get to choose whatever entrance music they want, no matter how bad or good it is.
With the popularity of the EA UFC game, when can we see a Bellator game come out on the next-gen system?
Actually working on some options on a Bellator game now, but we're probably still at least a year to a year and a half out.
Can we have the hot exclusive on who you think you're going with in developing the game?
Well, we've actually talked to 3 different developers and some different producers as well, and so that there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, as you guys know. But it's in today's day of age, it's almost like producing a feature film. So it's a bigger project than many people realize.
Okay, now other than the fans, who wins in a ring card girl competition, Ariane or Jade Bryce?
Jade Bryce.
Have you done any grappling or boxing before? And let the fans know, how good are you?
I've done a good deal of grappling, a fair amount of stand-up. I've got adequate stand-up. I've got real good top control. I'm not spectacular off my back, but I can hold my own. I've rolled with a lot of our guys. I got the pleasure. I travel with some of the greatest fighters in the world, and they're always willing to roll with me just to humor me. I'm 48 years old, so that I'm not quite as explosive or powerful or agile or flexible as I used to be, but I'm all right. I can hold my own.
Awesome. Now, what's a typical day like for Bjorn Rebney?
Boy, I'm up at about 6. I'm usually into the office by about 7:15. I spend a lot of time responding to emails. I usually have anywhere from 10 to 12 calls set on my calendar and 2 to 3 meetings. They're crowded days. There's a lot of parts to this puzzle between talking with international television partners, working with the production team and the operations team, working with our partners at Spike and Viacom, working with sponsors, working with venue partners, talking to fighters, working through dynamics with fighters. There are as many different pieces to a Bjorn Rebney day as you could possibly conceptualize, because I've still, all these years in, I've still got my hands in every aspect of the business.
Now, the day is about to get a lot more interesting with this question. Now, if you had a movie based on your life, who would play you, your wife, and obviously the UFC would be in the movie in some respect, and who would be playing Dana White?
Wow. For me, just in my dream scenario, probably Jason Statham.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Either he would have to eat a lot more and put on a lot of weight and get rid of those wicked abs, or I'd have to go get into a crazy shape that I haven't been in about 5 to 10 years. My wife would probably play herself, because she's as much of an original as there has ever been, and so I wouldn't even want to hazard a guess as to who could play my wife. And Dana, I don't know. He's quite a character. He could probably play himself.
Maybe Michael Chiklis. That's what I was thinking. Michael Chiklis from The Shield.
And just for the record, Rich Franklin, Salma Hayek, he said would play his wife. So just to put that on the record as well.
And one of the last questions: when is Bellator coming to Australia, Bjorn?
Oh, I would love to come to Australia. First thing we've got to do is really secure a spectacular television alliance. I mean, look, the way you set the table for doing live events is you have very highly rated television programming in market that precedes your live event experience by a couple years. So I think that's the first step in the equation, is to get the real platform down and to really start generating numbers. We've done that in South America now, and we're going to be transitioning there. We've done that in Russia, and we've got our eyes on the prize in terms of getting there. But I would love to come down to Australia. That of all the great places on earth that I've been, and I've been almost everywhere, Australia is one of the places I've never been to, and it's really one of the places that's lacking. My nephews, my sister, brother-in-laws all go to Australia every summer, and I've never been, and it's like the one missing link in my incredible places around the world that I've been to.
Come on down, Bjorn. We'll get you some Vegemite in a VB. And obviously another issue, we've got to get it legalized here in Victoria because that's just ridiculous. But guys, you can catch Bjorn Rebney on Twitter at Bjorn Rebney. And of course, you can watch Bellator live through our buddies at MMA Canvas. And you can catch older episodes on the 10 affiliated Channel 1 in Australia. Bjorn, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. It's been an eye-opening experience.
Well, it's been awesome talking to you guys. Let's talk again soon, all right?
Absolutely. You're welcome anytime. Thanks so much, Bjorn.
You got it.
So there you have it, guys. Bjorn Rebney, the president of the second largest MMA organization in the world, chatting to Submission Radio about a whole bunch of things.
Our buddy Bjorn Rebney now, I think. I think he had a good time. We had a good time. Looks like Jason Statham a little bit, and the nicest guy, one of the nicest guys we've spoken to, very accessible, and, a great interview there, and, excited to see what happens with Bellator in the future. But, guys, it is time to put a bow on it. It's time to put it to sleep. It's the end of the show. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. For anyone who hasn't, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iTunes, another easy place to listen to Submission Radio. Stick around, check out our channel. There's going to be a whole bunch of things coming up, including the EA UFC, obviously gameplay footage and hands-on, and the fan Q&A with all the YouTube fans. Thank you so much for commenting on the videos. Keep bringing those comments in, and we may possibly do another Q&A video later down the track on our channel, and we might even get one of the assistant or executive producers from EA on the show further down. So definitely check that out. The next about week or two, we'll have a video interview with Robert Whitaker. We'll have Don Fry on the show, so that's going to be some really exciting stuff as well.
That's right, guys. We are taking a brief hiatus from the usual show. We're going to take a 2-week break. Keep an eye on the channel there. We have a lot of stuff coming out. And if you have any questions, any comments, check us out on Twitter at SubmissionAUS.
Till then, guys, stay safe. We hope you enjoyed UFC 173 and the reign of TJ Dillashaw. Again, being a former guest of Submission Radio, congratulations to TJ, and we look forward to interviewing him soon. Till then, enjoy your time, guys. Have a great week, and I'll speak to you soon.